Hello, Bioware. My name is Sky Ainsworth, and this is I guess you could say, part of a fluke of an idea of trying out an online resume to apply for the writer position for your new upcoming MMO game idea. Now, you're asking for a module to be programmed, and unfortunately I just was a little preoccupied with work and some other things, but I didn't really have a chance to learn or to pick up or learn, so I didn't really want to try to bother. I did, however, get my hands on Richard Garriott's Tabula Rasa trial beta key. Not a beta, sorry. I had an invitation to the beta. I wasn't able to play that, but I was finally able to play a trial version for 3 days, and got a taste of that gameplay. Now, and I decided to pursue that instead of trying to research learning the game module, because it would take me a while to learn how to program that, and that is something I can learn easily. But I'd much rather see what would your competitor, what is your competition going to be for your game, and how would I have to write as a response to that? What sort of compelling and interesting gameplay experience would I create or want to create? So with that in mind, I paid attention to in particular in how the game compared to Lord of the Rings Online, along with World of Warcraft. How does gameplay, how does the player interact with this game? How does the player feel that he's being interacted with? And then on top of that was the story. So there are a lot of interesting elements with that. Instead of NPCs you talk to, you can actually read journals. You read blogs, or letters, emails that are posted on random computers around the landscape. So it's a very interesting, way to approach that. In my opinion, with I apologize. Let me shift gears here. So part of the idea of what he wanted written was the player walks into a field with 3 NPCs and go from there. Now, so that presents kind of a vacuum for me, in my opinion, because I like to take what other people are using and kind of build off of that. In a way, you could say, create tension off of that interplay and exchange. But at the same time, I don't mind trying to create something, but I just realized that if I have no understanding of what the environment and what the rules are going to be like, I have to create my own rules, so to speak. And so I had a notion that, what if you created these 3 NPCs are involved in an assassination plot on a king. They're disgruntled, and part of that being disgruntled is that they're part of a servant corps that was serving this king in the palace, and there was an assassination attempt on the king. He freaked out and had many of the servants arrested and thrown in a dungeon. And so you have in the middle of a city a place that's the palace for the king, and it's in that palace that it's an instance in the game world, so that you can see what it looks like, but the player, based on what the player has done, is going to affect what happens within that castle. And so what I propose is that the player could, literally, depending on what sort of quest path they're choosing, they could walk into this MMO environment. There's an instance there, which is the castle, and so as a result, there are guards who live and exist around the castle, and based on your relationship with that city and the command structure, the guards will react to you accordingly. But to affect your relationship, really, you have to enter into the castle, and there's different missions you can pursue. So one of them is that you go into the castle, and for whatever reason, you have a companion, an NPC companion you developed, or is assumed, or whatever sort of relationship develops because of previous missions, and that NPC companion is captured. Or you're going in to free somebody for a faction, that's related to some faction, so that was in their relation to you, but you need to free this person to trigger the next quest. Well, this whole mini quest you create is you can go in and assassinate the king, either in battle or poison, or like you do a thief, backstab, whatever, and or you could go into the prison and bust out your friend, and maybe even free all the other prisoners, and that would create chaos. And really, you release your one guy, and you earn the dislike of the guards, and they attack you on sight. Or the other option is that you can, if you're a magic user, or you can hire a magic user, you go into the game world, or I mean, you go into the king's bedchamber at night. So this is an instance that is time sensitive as well. So if you go in at night and you're on this particular mission, the king is asleep, and you are gonna, you have a certain time limit to go in and do what you got to do. And in this case, you're going to scare the king, and so you have to procure certain items, to achieve that. So you have a variety of options, presented to the player. They can go one of many routes, and it's also, what sort of gameplay style would the player want to go for? The other cue is that you have to present, since you're offering 3 NPCs, you're also potentially offering 3 quests, or quest paths, and the player can ultimately decide amongst these 3 NPCs what sort of quest they want, and so you can have a variety of dialogue options presented. If it's a sort of, as soon as the player enters a radius, the player becomes part of the gaming world, and a cutscene, an in-game cutscene takes place, which would be kind of interesting, especially if you had like a voiceover feed. So you see, I'm not even sure how you're going to create the MMO, but if I might suggest, why not go for that if that's possible? I'm liking how in Tabula Rasa there's a lot more of the individual. You start reading a mission, and you hear a person's voice, and so it's just a nice little touch. Now imagine if you could further include an element of an in-game cutscene into your MMO. Because, see, in my opinion, you're going to really have to improve over what's already out there if you're going to create a medieval-type MMO. And in the case of, like, Call of Duty, 4, it's the same, previous Call of Duties, these, shooter games, but they've just really enhanced the graphics and a lot of the gameplay elements. So they made a realistic, approach. And it's really, you have to think of novelty. So how can we approach this way novelty-wise? And if anything, unique-wise. So I'm just operating, trying to write and create in this idea of like, well, what can be novel? What can be a creative, pushing the envelope way of gameplay? So this is the other reason why I'm trying to do a video. I figure, trying to capture my creative genius or nuttiness, or I hope I don't scare anybody away, kind of thing. But and this, if anything, this would be like part 1, because it's easier for me to upload this way.